So a delivery today of the rear brake pipes. They're all pretty bent and everything, which is really good. Obviously got the flexi on the end, banjo bolt washers are in there somewhere. So left and right. So we'll get those installed onto the rear axle now, in prep then basically for the calipers when they turn up, and hopefully then start getting the final bits put together. Okay, first one's in. You can just about see it at the bottom of there somewhere. Okay, obviously loops back, goes through. So this was pre-bent to be able to fit. However, still have to do a little bit of manipulation to get this pipe to sit roughly where these little securements are. Now whether that's because of the packaging they put it in, I'm not sure, but fit it in from that side, put that retainer clip in on the flexi, gives it a bit more sturdiness, and then just feed that pipe around. So at least this side does fit, which is good. So we're all ready now for when the calipers turn up, hopefully at the end of the month. But that's the biggest, that's the big part done. Okay, so the caliper carriers then, obviously these are the original ones, in pretty bad state. What I've decided to do is clean them up, resurrect them, get all those channels cleaned out, and obviously where the pins go, the pin sliders go, they've all been cleaned out as well, as opposed to what it did look like with all the stuff that was on it just sitting around. Can't replace these, they're about 20 quid each. I might do that in the future, but what I'm going to try and do is put some rust converter onto this. It's just a simple case of just painting it on, letting it dry, prime it up, and then finish off with some Caliper silver gloss paint on it. So let's see how we get on. Okay, so the stuff I'm going to be using is Rustin's rust converter. You got all the instructions on there. Basically, prepare the actual area, make sure it's all free of grease and oil, clean all that down. Application is by a brush. Do the first coat on the components that you want to cover. Allow for 30 minutes. Then apply a top coat after a minimum of 3 hours. For best results, paint the same day. Okay, which is hopefully what we're going to do later on. But as you can see already, since we've cleaned that up, we put on the first coat, and then once that's done, we'll put another coat on in 30 minutes or so. Let that dry out then for the rest of the day. Carry on with this one, get all that cleaned up, get it prepped ready, and then hopefully by later on this afternoon, be at the stage where we can actually put the final top coat on now, which is going to be the silver gloss spray. So these are both treated now, just waiting for these to dry, and then we'll get into the final stage where we'll start spraying them silver. We're going to be using this stuff here. We'll give it a few coats, let it dry overnight, and see what they come out in the morning. So further from yesterday's part where we were going to use the original carriers, we managed to get those all cleaned up. They've been treated with a rust converter, and then late last night we ended up giving them a good coating of the silver gloss. To go out quite well, to be fair. So hopefully they should last a while. You can get these brand new. They're not, they're not difficult to get hold of, but just for these two, it would have cost me about 40 quid. And like I said, with everything, I'm all onto a budget, as most of us are. Some of us have larger budgets than others, but I thought, well, these are still in good nick. We actually did clear out all these yesterday. There's absolutely nothing in there. They were already in pristine condition inside, so we've gone and cleaned them anyway, degreased them and stuff like that, and we did a test fit, and they all seem to be in really good condition. So when you apply those pins using the silicone grease, which came with the kits, they'll go back together real nice. Okay, so let's make a start. All the bits, all the tools, so hopefully this will be on very soon. If I don't capture all of it, apologies, it is just me and I'm just using a camera phone and I've got nowhere literally to put anything. So I'll try and capture what I can. Failing that, we'll just get the snapshots of the rebuild. First need this. Okay. Awesome. I'm just going to smear just a small quantity of copper crest just up between the surfaces. Not much, just keep it really, really thin. If I do need to take these off, I don't have to be fighting all the time, so just get rid of the excess. So your disc has just come out, got some brake cleaner on its way today, so even though I'm installing these, they're still going to get effectively cleaned down. So at this point I'm not too concerned if a little bit of this copper crest gets on it. Awesome. Okay, let's design it first. Okay. Nice. Okay. So they're in place. And we'll give them a top. 65. Okay, I think what I'm going to do is if I can get a different torque wrench and go through these, because that should have clicked off. For some reason it hasn't. So I'll get these reconfirmed later on before we get it back on the actual ground. But yeah, that was quite tight, that, so they should have clicked off by now. And we'll get those sorted out. Guides. Awesome. It's always good to do a test fit first, just to make sure that everything is aligned. Okay. Yeah. So new pins, new seals, and looks like silicone grease. I hope so. And the trick is to this, apparently, not to leave anything on the end, but at the same time not to overly coat these. But it is silicone based. as opposed to the general grease that some people may have used in the past. Liberal, I think that's the word, liberal coating of grease. We don't want any on the end, because the idea is if you put stuff on the end and you put this pin in, it starts to build up at the back when it goes all dry and horrible, and it stops the pin then from going fully back in. So we don't need too much on there. So they seem to fit quite well, which is good. So we put our dust cap on. There we go. Good cover on there. Happy days. Right. So we'll put these back in. Like so. Oh, to have a double garage and space. Okay. And these bolts have got a tiny amount of manufacturer's thread lock on. These as much as we can. 15. So these are slightly different. These are 15. Really awkward being left-handed. But needless to say, they're on tight. This little bit. There's flexi pipe installed. Just put these on loose for now. That's because it's a one shot on these washers usually, so I don't want to mess them up. That's it there. Right, I've had this side blanked off for a while using a set of clamps. So I noticed to get a little bit of residue in there. We're good. Nothing's leaking out. Put the smallest amount of copper slip onto the threads on these, because these do rust over time. So just a tiny amount. There we go. Okay. The flexi, I believe, is a 14, and the actual hose connection is a 10. Back to there. Awesome. And this 13. That's nice and solid. Okay. So that is the brake caliper on. I've got a bit of a high spot there, but hopefully that's just the pads. Pads are in correctly. So the springs are on the back end. They're actually installed correctly. So everything I need to check really is make sure that these are torqued correctly. They feel tight, but I think for some reason my torque wrench is going a bit weird. So we'll get those checked. I'm going to be checking all the other bolts anyway. Obviously before it goes off for its MOT. But for now, that's that side. Apart from the last little bit, which is the dust cap. We've already pre-greased in there. So give this some gentle taps. There we go. So that is that side built up. So the only thing left for us to do now is essentially get the brake cable on. So the only thing left then to do is just to put the clip back on, and that basically goes somewhere around here. There we go. Safe as can be. Awesome. Got a little boot thing now. Let's just see. There we go. The boots aren't brilliant on this, but as a means to an end, it just allows me to have the brake system back running. So that's all that brake side done now. Okay. All locked in place. All I need to do now is bleed the brakes. So what I do now off camera, I'm just going to go and borrow a torque wrench from one of the neighbours down the road. We're just going to redo these bolts just to make sure they're good, and I'll do those while we're at it. There's mountains up there that needed to be done from the previous job. I'll get those rechecked. But yeah, so that's that system on, all ready to go. So let's say we'll get the bleeding that lot done. Probably not today, because I need to get a self bleed kit that I could put on the front, because obviously it's just me, so it just makes it life a little bit easier when getting these brakes all primed. So what I'm going to do now is crack on with the other side, and we'll get that fitted up, and we'll get to the stage then where we're almost ready to spin this vehicle around. So I did initially cover the fuel tank straps, but talking with others, I think what I'm going to do is have those replaced. So in order to do that, I've got to take this back plastic cover off. I've got those weird fixings inside. Funny enough, I've only just put a new one in, but I've got spare. So the traps are on order. They should be here hopefully by next weekend. So we'll take that rear bit off, change those straps over, and that hopefully will conclude this whole rear axle and assembly complete. It's just taking a little bit longer than I expected, but the good thing is, well, the only good thing is that it's in a dry garage. Everything's allowed to sort of dry out, sort of thing. I can see exactly what's been going on. the back box at the moment, until I get closer, looks in relatively good nick, but it does have some black spots on there, I just noticed. But I'll be getting around to that as and when I can. But for now, that's pretty much all this done. So let me crack on. I'll get the other side done. I'll put on some end shots, a little bit more video at the end, and we'll be able to take this car out, spin it around, and then start all over again with the fronts. Yay. Okay, so everything's in place. Unfortunately, my camera phone died for the battery, so I'm just doing a recap. So essentially, like you've seen before, everything's been put back in its correct position. Brake cable is now sitting where it should be. One of the things to note, if I've not mentioned earlier, is when you buy these, this little bracket here, I'll just show you. Here we go. This little bracket here is obviously machine turned, bent. When I put the cable in, it was actually too tight. So we've had to just lever it out ever so slightly. Just see from there. It was too tight for this actually to sit proud. So this is actually quite a little bit forward, about here. Okay. And you can see the bottom of there, just there. Let me just get a zoom in. There we go. You can see where the actual cable meets the end, and it's all crimped together. Apologies for the shaking. So we have to just fettle this a little bit, just bend this out ever so slightly, clean it up a little bit, and obviously now it sits quite perfect. So the cable, without any adjustment whatsoever from the previous dismantle, the new caliper and the handbrake cable, the lever system, it backs on against this stop here, which is correct. No issues there. We've just checked the other side. I don't know if I can see it from this side, it's a bit too far. Let me just see if I can zoom in. There you go. The other side is all built up as well, and you can see the cable slot in the middle. So that all meets the requirements for our rebuild system. Again, off camera, I've had to do a little bit of bleeding. So unbeknownst to me, one of the tricks of the trade was to apparently, before you break into the system, is to put pressure on the pedal, the brake pedal, and push it down and leave it in a down position. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Maybe you guys can answer that. But apparently that helps the fact that not an awful lot of oil is actually going to disperse from the opening. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea. Anyway, we've bled the rear passenger side first. That was quite quick to come back in, which is really good. This side, however, which is the driver's rear, was a bit problematic. To the extent of my only bleed system was literally a bit of plastic with a non-return valve at the end, and I was relying on the brake pedal to actually push that stuff through. That wasn't going to work. So what I had to do was effectively buy this brake bleed system. It's a vacuum system, and the idea is that you, with the fixings and everything, it's all in there, connect the fixing. From that system, I have a hose connected to the end. This will then fit onto your brake nipple on the caliper, and the idea is that by creating a vacuum in this, you're pulling all that fluid and air through the system from the reservoir. It hopefully gets rid of a lot of the air in the system, which on this one there was a lot of. I was quite surprised. So apologies for not actually capturing that on the camera. Hopefully you can understand the philosophy around that sort of thing. You need to obviously keep your reservoir topped up, but using this system, it actually draws that fluid through, and by doing that it also draws the air through. So we managed to get most of the air out of the caliper itself and the lines to a state now that even though these two rear ones do actually work, if I was to turn the engine on, the brake pedal still sinks to the bottom. So there's still air in the system somewhere. So effectively, I need to now bleed the front, which I'll either do off cam, or if I get time, I may actually include in the next video. It really depends on where I am in the task, what time I have, and if I actually remember to record it. But essentially, brake bleed is a brake bleed system. You need to start from what the manufacturer spec says, which I think on this vehicle is a rear left, rear right, and you do the front systems. Yes, this vehicle has ABS, and there's also a possibility that if the fluid is dropped low enough, that you may get air in the ABS module itself. So you have to then do what would they call a manual stroke operational bleed of the ABS system. You can do this through VCDS if you've got the software. Failing that, you can take it to a local garage and they'll be able to do the system for you. But overall, this vehicle, you should be able to bleed the brakes manually. As in, you release, let's say, the passenger rear through a non-return valve. You pump the brakes, the fluid comes through, and it should pump out all the air. And then you just go in sequence to the rear right, to the front, do the front two, and that should be it done. So hopefully that's what I'm going to get to next. This vehicle now is at the point where, apart from the actual tank straps, retraining straps, which have been more problematic than I thought at first. So I'm either going to try and knuckle on with that next weekend, or I'll get on with a garage maybe just to replace them for me, because they probably can do it a lot quicker. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it shows you a bit of an insight as to what's been going on with the rear axle system being removed, a new one installed, building up the brake system, the bearing system, brake pipes, etc, etc. And then hopefully the next video will see us with the car spun around, and we'll have this front of the vehicle sat in this position, and we start again. Essentially, we make a new video of all the things that we need to do for the new suspension system, front subframe, engine servicing, all that good stuff. All right, catch you again. Bye.